Hola. Hola. How are you?
Good.
I'm having a problem here to focus. Yeah, alright. Hello, hello.
My name is Annabel Smith. I'm a student doing my PhD in fire ecology at the Australian National University and in collaboration with Flinders University. My project is looking at fire ecology of 3 species of reptiles, and each of the 3 species have a contrasting response to fire. So one of them, the burrowing gecko, Nephorus stellatus, it increases after fire. So if you go into the bush where it's been burnt within 5 years, they'll be abundant. There'll be lots of them running around everywhere, and you can go out at night with your spotlight into a part of the burnt bush and see them running around the ground everywhere. But you go into the bush that hasn't been burnt for 30 years and they're very, very rarely you'll see one. So they have this quite clear fire response where they're more abundant after a fire than in the long unburnt bush. And the opposite is with Tenotus atlas, the mallee skink. It's more abundant in the long unburnt bush. So what I'm looking at is why do these species have these responses? So previous work has shown that they do have this fire response, but I'm trying to figure out what is it about them. So I'm doing a number of things. One of them is doing a mark recapture study. So we go in there and catch them in traps and bring them back, and we collect information on them. So we measure them and weigh them, and we give them an individual mark so that when we catch them the next time, we can know exactly which animal we've caught, how far it's moved, and maybe how much it's grown since the last time we caught it. So what we do is we mark the animals with a fluorescent elastomer that we inject under their skin. It's a product that's designed for marking animals in wildlife research. What we do with radio tracking is we catch an animal and we stick a little transmitter onto the back of the animal, and the transmitter emits a signal, a radio signal, and we have a receiver which picks up this signal and an aerial that attaches to the receiver. So we can release an animal and it can run off, and we can come back the next day and find where it's been. So what we're doing in this study is we're coming back every day and we're getting a location fix on each animal, and from this we can develop a home range size. So we can work out how big is the area that the animal moves for its regular daily activities. The transmitters that we have can emit the signal up to about 500 metres away. So if we go back to where we caught it the day before, it's most likely going to be somewhere in the vicinity, and we can pick up that signal and follow the animal. Well, when I think of life in the bush, the first thing that pops into my head is dirt, sunscreen and sweat. The place where we're working, it's very sandy, so you have to have a 4-wheel drive to get in there. We have to drive over sand dunes, so it's very bumpy and quite a rough ride. But it's fun. Yeah, it's fun. We work in very remote locations, so there's no facilities, and we basically have to pack the car up with everything that you would need for your field work, for doing science, but also for living. So we have a tent where we keep all our laboratory equipment and all our food and everything. I think the future is unknown because the climate is changing and the land is changing, and we don't know how these changes are going to affect processes that have been changing but at a different rate. So over an evolutionary timescale, there's always been changes in the habitat and the ecosystem, but in the last 100 years these changes have been happening at a much higher rate. So we don't know how this is going to affect these places, and I think probably one of the most important things to do is to do very detailed ecological studies so we can have some baseline data on what goes on, so we can know what the natural system is. And another really important area of research is to look at modelling, because with simulation modelling we can actually put changes into the equation and figure out how they're going to affect biodiversity. Oh, it's beautiful.
Lift it up a bit.
So